India's options, what really are they? Do we pursue the global isolation of Taliban, as some are suggesting? Do we back anti-Taliban resistance forces? Or do we engage with the Taliban through back channel or openly engage with them? Or do we wait till the Afghan situation settles? Should our embassy be back? That's the question that I want to raise. Joining me now at this moment, Gautam Mukhopadhyay, former Indian ambassador to Kabul, also joined by Rakesh Sood, who is also a former Indian ambassador to Afghanistan, and Sudheen Kulkarni, who has a very strong perspective on this new Taliban, as he's calling it. I want to get all of you to answer that central question, starting with you, Gautam Mukhopadhyay, first. Should we be openly engaging with the Taliban? Hamid Mir says back channel talks have been on for a year. Should we now remove all the pretenses and reach out to the Taliban openly in the belief that they are the government in charge?
No, I don't think so. Actually, one of the Taliban's principal objectives with India is to have some kind of legitimacy. India is the last country that has held that, and that's actually quite a strong bargaining chip. So I don't think we should jump onto it. I think this is something that we have to watch and wait. We have to see if Taliban 2.0 is really what they are promising it is, whether they are inclusive. And we don't have to only look at our interests, because we also have to look at the interests of the Afghan people. So I would say that there's a whole history of atrocities, almost comparable, if you include the latest stories about forced marriages and abductions of women, almost comparable to what the ISIS did in Syria and Iraq. Hamid Mir said something very interesting. He said that the Taliban have changed only in two ways, which is their diplomacy and their propaganda. I would add a third thing, which is the element of deception. So, they have been using these, and I think we need to be very, very careful. Deception till the last moment, deceiving the Americans into believing that they would not enter Kabul until the withdrawal of their last troops.
So you're saying don't engage till the situation settles, till the Taliban actually walk the talk in a way. Rakesh Sood, do you agree that until we are convinced that this is a Taliban that has any genuine interest in stability or peace and stability in the area, we don't engage with them at all? There are former diplomats who are saying we made a mistake by closing down our embassy. We need to maintain channels of communication.
Rajdeep, I have maintained for more than 2 years that we had put all our eggs in one basket. And we relied on the Ghani government and we relied on the Americans. Now, neither the Ghani government exists, nor do the Americans. They're also leaving. So from that point of view, we are somewhat bereft of options. However, it is also true what Gautam says, that nobody really knows whether this is really a Taliban 2.0 or whether this is just a more media savvy repackaged Taliban 1.0. Nobody really has an answer to it.
No, so
the fact is,
so we keep waiting.
Since we are not on the ground.
No, so what should India do?
We can't really find out. I mean, we've now withdrawn all our diplomats. We can't just send them back. So we will have to wait willy-nilly. We will have to wait till the situation settles, and we can make a better assessment. There is no other easier option.
Interesting the way you're putting it. The question, of course, is, Sudheen Kulkarni, you've just written a piece suggesting that this is indeed Taliban 2.0. But evidence on the ground suggests they still spread fear. They work on intimidation. The gun works. They are subjugating women. They want to push back the clock back by 20 years. Why should any civilized democracy engage with a group that doesn't observe human rights?
Rajdeep, to understand what's happening in Afghanistan today, we have to have a historical perspective. We should know that after 40 years of two invasions and wars waged by two superpowers, Afghanistan is free of external invasion and war. And this is to be celebrated because the original sin, the mool papi, are the two superpowers. The Soviet invasion killed tens of thousands of Afghans for 10 years, and then 20-year occupation by the Americans, in which they spent $1 trillion, that is 70 lakh crore. Again, tens of thousands of people were killed. The so-called mother of all bombs dropped on Afghans, innocent people. We should not forget all these crimes. Of course, we must not condone, we must not overlook the crimes committed by the Taliban also. There are two sides to Taliban. One is they are freedom fighters, and the other is they have committed crimes because of the influence of fanatical understanding of Islam. But now the reality is that they have taken over Afghanistan. And many countries have already tacitly begun talking to them. The United States engaged them and signed a peace accord. That is tacit recognition. The Taliban delegation went to Moscow. That is tacit recognition. They've gone to China. So they're already there in control of. But if they continue the old way of committing atrocities on their own people, the people themselves rebel against them. And therefore, the international community, including India, we must both engage Taliban and at the same time work for peace and inclusive government in Afghanistan. And of course, national reconstruction. National reconstruction.
But do we have, Gautam Mukhopadhyay, any leverage with Kabul? Let's be realistic. Do we really have any leverage, given the role that we played over the last 20 years in the reconstruction, rebuilding of Afghanistan, our connection with the previous Ghani government? Do we really have a role to play, India at all, or do we just stay away and watch the great game that's playing out there with China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan, the primary contenders for space and strategic depth?
No, not at all. Firstly, I think I would beware of trying to reduce our support for the Islamic government of Afghanistan, the Republic of Afghanistan, to a support for President Ghani. There are much larger issues of political principles, rights, freedoms, and opportunities that are also involved. Secondly, I think Mr. Kulkarni just made one point that finally Afghanistan is free from external intervention. It's not true. The first intervention was British, the second was Soviet, the third was Americans. Now we are actually seeing a Pakistani intervention. But also on the binary that you put.
Sorry to stop you. You're very clear that this is a Pakistani intervention, that Pakistan has played a role in the setting up of Afghan Taliban. Am I correct?
Yes, right from 1994.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So let's come to the question of, whether we have any leverage or not. Firstly, I think there's a range of options between no engagement and full recognition. You could have minimal engagement, just enough to keep a working relationship going and a relationship with the Afghan people, provided, of course, Pakistan and Taliban allow it. You could have an extra step, which is legitimization, I think, which we should be very careful and hold back. And then you have recognition. I think there are lots of political elements at work right now that are trying to put together a kind of fig leaf of an inclusive government, in which sort of, various other ethnic leaders and others will be represented, but without any real power. So I think we really need to watch and wait and see whether they mean the talk. But also in terms of leverage, please don't forget one thing. The Taliban, the core of the Taliban is Pashtun. The Pashtuns' traditional, most important historical trade and even political relationship with India historically and into up to the time of independence and even a little beyond that was with India, not with Iran or Central Asia. So the Pashtuns have a very close connection with India. Part of the Pakistani objective in the Afghan Taliban is to actually try to sever this relationship between the Pashtuns and India and between Afghanistan and India and do a kind of geopolitical re-engineering and link it with Central Asia. That is what we are seeing when the Pakistanis talk about geoeconomics, number one. And number two, that's what we are seeing when the United States falling for, when they actually signed up to, or in fact initiated, the whole idea of a Central Asia connectivity quad. And I think this is an important thing. Do we want to be severed or do we not? And what is the space that we manipulate between our antipathy for a regime that is really very much, at least at this point, until they come to power, we'll have to see that again, very much a creation of Pakistan and intended to erase both Afghan and Pashtun identity and submerge it in a larger sort of pan-Islamic identity. The whole war of flags that we are taking, that we are seeing today, is part of that.
Pan-Islamic identity. Rakesh Sood, your view also? Do you believe that in a way, India at the moment just has to wait and watch to see how this plays out at the moment, given the uncertain situation?
See, I think Gautam raised a valid question when he said, is Afghanistan really free? In other words, is Taliban an independent agent? Now, here I would like to pick up one point. Pakistan has always found it more comfortable to deal with Islamist Pashtuns. India has always found it more comfortable to deal with nationalist Pashtuns. So here is an inherent contradiction. Beyond a point, when Pashtuns are in their homeland, in this case, Afghanistan, they become nationalist also. And I think we saw signs of that. We may still see signs of that. And I think that is what we need to be able to discern.
So you're
how
saying
we discern that?
Yes.
Whether we discern it through, now, obviously we don't have any people on the ground there. So how we discern it will depend on the signals that we receive or we send out. But that is what we need to see. Nationalist Pashtuns is a natural Indian constituency. Islamist Pashtuns are not.
So that is a battle. That is a battle within a battle. A quick final word, and Sudheen Kulkarni, because you said this is a freedom moment for Afghanistan. Theirs will say freedom at what cost? And the interesting observation being made by the two ambassadors: Pashtun nationalism versus Indian nationalism versus Islamic nationalism. The romantic notion of the Kabuliwala.
Sorry, Rajdeep, Islamist Pashtunism.
Yeah, Islamist Pashtunism. You've got the romantic sort of notion of the Kabuliwala versus the reality today of the Taliban. Let's not glamorize or romanticize the Taliban is my final. Do you agree with that, Sudheen Kulkarni? A quick answer.
Of course, we must not glamorize Taliban, and we must not condone the crimes committed by Taliban in the past. And the international community is strong enough to ensure that they don't indulge in any mischief. At the same time, a very important point needs to be made. Suppose India is attacked and invaded by a foreign country. What is my duty as a patriot? My duty as a patriot and as a nationalist is to drive the invaders out. This is what the Afghans have done. This is what the Taliban have done. And that's why I've said that the Taliban are Afghan patriots. We should not overlook this point. There are two sides to Taliban.
Okay.
They are Afghan nationalists. At the same time, they have committed crimes under the influence of a fanatical interpretation of Islam.
I take your point. The question is, the challenge for India is to walk through this minefield that exists at the moment in Afghanistan while securing our interests in the region. I appreciate all of you joining us. Every word that you've said, in a sense, should echo. It's good to hear such clear, strong voices on the show. Thanks very much, Gautam Mukhopadhyay, Rakesh Sood and Sudheen Kulkarni, for joining me this evening.